So, good morning, my dears, and welcome into this wonderful room of ours that is always very full. People say to me, "What is it like speaking to an empty room?" I said, "I don't know. I've never spoken to one." Because this room feels very full to us who serve here, and it's full of the essence of everybody tuning in and the essence of everybody who's ever sat in one of these seats throughout time. So it is very full, and it doesn't seem to be much different at all to me. I don't get to hear your wonderful voices and see your sweet faces in person, but I can see them and we can see them, and we're always knowing you're here with us, whether you're tuned in or whether you're not tuned in. But for those of you who are, we are very grateful. And if there's anybody tuning in for the first time, terrific. Welcome to the Wednesday morning virtual gathering, the circle of unity and peace and harmony and oneness. And God knows, and everyone knows, nothing better than that. I cannot think of any other way to spend my time, and I'm sure you're the same. I have a couple of books here with me today, and I would like to have our opening prayer be one of Ernest Holmes now, because I'm dedicating this morning to Ernest Holmes in deep appreciation for all he has brought to us as individuals and to the world in general. A wonderful, beautiful man of peace and joy and non-judgmentalism and a beautiful sense of humor, and a very easy and attractive and wonderful presence to be around, because he had himself centered in that awareness of knowing that he was connected to his great good higher self, to his creator. And so when anybody is managing that, it is a very attractive energy and a wonderful, wonderful feeling to be in their company. So we dedicate this morning to him, and I have a little magazine. It's an old magazine, this one. I mean, well, comparatively old. And this magazine was printed in 1989. And of course, it would be difficult to get one of these now. But I always love going back to the originals, because all of the originals really were shot through with the power and the passion of the people who originate something. And so it's very potent, and it's very powerful, and it's very strong. And others who contribute are caught up in that energy too, as they share what they share. So this is a prayer that the wonderful Dr. Ernest Holmes wrote, and you can find in his textbook, actually, on page, I think, about 56 or 57. So that's what we're going to open our minds and hearts to listening to. And that's all you and I have to do in prayer, is just simply listen. So let's just go to a different space. Let's take ourselves out of the external environment and its busyment, and just be relaxed enough and slow down enough to imbibe something that is of deep spiritual nurturing and nourishing. So this is what is known as I center myself in the awareness of that which is greater than I am, and as I connect with my essential essence, my greater self. This is what I'm knowing from that energy, that spaciousness and that power. I am a center in the divine mind, a point of God consciousness and light, truth and action. My affairs are divinely guided and guarded into right action always. I receive great results from my oneness with my source. Everything I do, say, and think is stimulated by the truth. There is a power in this world that I speak of and into. And it is the truth, and it is the only truth. There is perfect and continuous right action in my life and in all of my affairs. So I own this truth and this power. I own this right action. I own this right thinking. I own this right feeling as I continue forward in my day to day, knowing that I do no harm, knowing that I show up to be the difference I agreed to be when I came in. This is the truth. It's released. It's responded to. And so it is, and a great amen. So it's wonderful actually to go to in one of the chapters in the textbook, there are prayers for everything, really, all kinds of situations. And it's wonderful to read them first and then move on into your own, putting together all of that in your own prayerful way and with your own open and receptivity. So today I'm going to make some references to Ernest Holmes' great Sermon by the Sea, which he gave in his last visit to Isilmar up near Carmel. And it's a retreat center, or it's a center where anybody can go, any group can go, or individual can go to really be in nature, embraced by it, and get clear. And this was 1959. And it was very close to his time of transition. So I would think he was very close, and more in company with all that's on the other side of the veil of this life than what's on the veil of this side of life. And so he was awesome in what he had to share. And as you know, whatever we share is never as good as what we perceive in ourselves. It never really catches it, but we do the best we can to explain the inexplicable, because spirituality's language is energy. The language of spirituality is energy. And you can feel people's energy and know at any time where they are spiritually. So, and that's why sometimes people's energies are attractive and sometimes they're not. They're repellent. And sometimes they're okay, you see. So, he says here, and I'll actually read you a little bit from the introduction. Ernest Holmes' legacy to mankind, his realization of the power of self-affirming consciousness, set forth as the science of mind and spirit philosophy, has made a profound difference in millions and millions of individual lives. Few people are aware of Dr. Holmes also envisaging the transformation of our entire species and the planet via the practice of self-affirming consciousness. His faith in such global metamorphoses was more declared as follows. The world is undergoing the death throes of the old order and the travail of a new birth. And whether or not it remains suspended in a state of indeterminate coma or passes immediately into heaven, the heaven of divine promise, will depend entirely upon how many of its ancient corpses it is willing to lose. It is as certain as the laws of nature are immutable that this is so. He says, someday this transition will take place. Someday the world will be reborn, resurrected into a consciousness of unity, cooperation, love, and collective security. He just could have been talking about this moment in time today, as far as I'm concerned. And then he goes on to say how this might be done. Dr. Holmes claimed no less than a planetary role for those who were participating in the discipline of self-affirming consciousness, or self-determination, or self-control, or self-awareness, whatever you want to call it. He says, we are part of the evolution of human destiny. We are part of the unfoldment of the divine intelligence in human affairs. This unfoldment has reached the point of conscious and deliberate cooperation with that principle of evolution and outpush of the creative urge of spirit, on this planet at least, to bring about innumerable centers which it may enjoy and express through. And he goes on to say then, and I love these sections of his Sermon on the Mount, which is available in our organization for anybody who wants it. It can be looked up online, actually. He says, it would be wonderful indeed if a group of persons should arrive on the earth who were for something and against nothing. This would be the summum bonum of human organization, wouldn't it? It's kind of the raison d'etre, right? The reason for everything. And then he goes on to say, find me one person, that's you and me, who is for something and against nothing, who is redeemed enough not to condemn others out of the burden of his or her own soul. And I will find another Savior, another Jesus, and an exalted human being. Somebody who can be for something and not against anything, do no harm. He calls an exalted human being. Find me one person who can get his own littleness out of the way, and he shall reveal to me an immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live. Get himself out of the way, get herself out of the way, and that will open up for the one in the presence of such a sense of greatness, largeness, spaciousness. Find me one person who knows how to talk to God really, and I shall walk with him or her through the world and the woods, and everything that seems inanimate will respond. The leaves of the trees will clap their hands. The grass will grow soft under feet. Find me one person who knows how to communicate with their higher power, their greater self, the source of their being. And all of nature will rise up in chorus, clapping their hands at such a spectacle. That must be rare indeed if he says, find me one person who can commune with the one, who can unify with the one, who can let go of judgments in favor of perceptions, who can just perceive. Oh my goodness me, was Jesus an arch example of that? standing before Pilate, accused. And Pilate really trying to get him to defend himself in some way so that he could have something to go on. And he didn't. He just stood there in silence. But he wasn't standing there doing nothing. He was standing there, and it's pointed out very nicely by Charles Erman Barker in one of his books. Treating Jesus, and treating for us means in prayer, or treating Pilate in prayer for Pilate, knowing Pilate as Pilate was in truth. And there was a result to that. Pilate remained silent, and all he did was take Jesus out to the crowd and said, "Behold your king." And then the muttering started, because they didn't have the same perception that Pilate had. Pilate was moved in some way. He had nothing to say, but he didn't want to judge either. He said, "Behold your king." And then the others took over, the rabble, as they were called. The mob took over. That mob mentality is extremely dangerous, as we witness to in our own times. And then he goes on to say, according to Holmes and his announced legacy to those who would be open and receptive to what he was sharing, he says, there is a power transcendent beyond our needs, beyond our little wants. Demonstrating a dime, he says, is good if you need one. Or healing oneself of a pain is certainly good if that has to be done. But he says, beyond that, at the real, I took 2 pages, at the real feast of the tabernacle of the Almighty, in the temple of the living God, in the banquet hall of heaven, there is something beyond anything that you and I could ever touch or dream of. We play so small. We think what a great thing it is to demonstrate a dime or to demonstrate my finger healing or whatever it is. And he says we have no idea of the power available, and with it, what good we can wield in our own situation and in the world, if we only knew. He says, find me 1,000 people who know that and use it, and the world will no longer be famished as it is right now. Thirsting, famished. How important it is that each one of us in our simple way shall live from God to God, with God, in God, and to each other. Live in a godly way to each other. It's just awesome. You can chew one of these sentences and digest it for a long, long time. That is why we are here, and we are taking back with us, I trust. And he's talking about taking back from Asilomar and the retreat time. A vision and an inspiration, something beyond a hope and a longing. We must go beyond hope and longing. We've been longing and hoping for too long. They're weak. We must see, we must perceive, we must vision. We must be clear about knowing in faith that every single thing turns out for the best ultimately, and it will do so quicker if you and I are on board in that faith, in that trust, in that knowing that there's something greater than we are in all of this. And it is in control. Mark my words. Nothing else is in control. It is in control. And I'm grateful to know that. It gives me comfort and helps me to sleep at night. He says, what we need to be focused on is that the living Spirit shall, through us, walk anew into its own new creation, and a new glory will come with a new dawn. If you and I can just know that we are not our puny little selves, we are so not our unfortunate and troubled and frightened egos. We, each individual one of us, are part, an inseparable part of the divine whole itself. And you and I get to draw from its power, its light, its life, its essence. Anytime we can bring ourselves down to be quiet enough, calm enough, sane enough, open enough, receptive enough to simply listening, breathing as that life, coming to allow yourself to breathe as that life, as that light, as that intelligence, as that love. Now this sounds easy, but those of us who have been in this endeavor for long and many a day know it is not. It is simple, but simple does not equal easy. It requires a practice, and it requires a commitment, and it requires a faithfulness to be able to be open and receptive to everything that's available to us as good, and to be available to the world as peace builders, unifiers, integrators, the harmless ones. How amazing is that if you and I could just grasp that, and we can. Bit by bit, if necessary, drop by drop, step by step, day by day, until suddenly we are in it, we are being it, it's happening through us. And we don't know that until it just happens automatically, spontaneously. And we still don't know it, but others recognize it in us. Any true, real, enlightened person will never tell you, I am enlightened. It will never happen. Because that's not their focus. What is their focus? Service, the other, taking care of, nurturing, nourishing, affirming life, bringing comfort and ease and healing balm wherever they are. And that can happen with the great realizers simply by being in their presence. So this is your legacy. It's my legacy. It's your opportunity. It's my opportunity. It's something that you can be and experience, that I can be and experience, provided I go through the initiation. And you see, it's all about initiation. That's what the spiritual life is. It's about the steps in initiation for the humanity of ourselves to get calmed down and to come together as an integrated thing, experience, physical being. And so the work is on that. I don't have to work to make myself better. I couldn't be better than I am in truth. I have to work to integrate my physicality, my humanity. And once I do that, automatically the royal and the beautiful mystical marriage takes place between the spirit that is formless and the body, the human, that is in form. And that's what is called the spiritual individual in this teaching, the spiritualized individual. That's what Jesus succeeded in doing, and other great people, but nobody is greatly an example, as great an example as the master teacher, Jesus the Christed one, the consciously Christed one. To the extent that his identification with his humanity lessened and lessened and lessened, and his identification with the divinity of himself increased and increased and increased, he became consciously Christed on this plane. And he said, you can do that too, and I can do that too. That's what he said. Those are his very words. Don't treat me as an exception. By all means, you could treat me as an example, but not an exception, because you can do it as I have done it. You too can do this that I have done. Now, there's nothing complicated about any of those words that cannot be understood. You too can do this that I have done. It's a beautiful thing, and I think that it's worthwhile us going through each of those little pointers in this every time we get together until it's done on a Wednesday morning. And there's a beautiful chapter in one of his books, and I can't remember the exact title of it at the moment. Oh, maybe I can, because it's right here, but I don't have time to go into it. Raymond Charles Barker, How to Be Healthy, Wealthy, and Happy. And underneath it says, money is God in action. And it's not about money. Money is part of a chapter. But there's small chapters, snippets in here. It's a valuable little tiny book of essays on different topics. But one of them is entitled, How to Change Other People. But you can't. I don't know how much time we have left. We haven't got too much time, but I'll get to that too, maybe next week, next Wednesday. Every single person in the spiritual, realizing, unfolding world has learned this. You cannot change any person. Stop trying. You're wasting your energy. It cannot be done. Change is self-change, and only self-change. And so to change other people, we change ourselves. How do we change ourselves? We change our perspective as we look out there, and as we see everything out there, and as we see others out there. For things to change, as we say here, I have to change. Nothing, no one else. That's tough when you first hear it. Don't tell me that son of a gun who is a blithering whatever and a bombastic whatever and so on hasn't got to change. No, he doesn't. You have to change. Why? Because you're the only one you have control over or not. That's all. Your business is yourself and your own advancement and your own unfoldment. And perspective has to change, that's all. We're a bit skewed, would you say, at the moment with regard to our collective perspective. And for me to change, it means very tough decision making. Instead of cussing someone out, I must take that someone into prayerfulness, go beyond all their disreputable behavior, and see them in their essence as the divine sees them and can only see them in their essence, as they were once upon a time that perfect idea in the mind of the Creator. That's the only thing that changes anything. And then what I perceive of that person, they become. Whatever energy you're sending out, you're either aggravating the energy that's already aggravated, or you're adding to the blissfulness of the person that is already blissful, and all the shades in between. Same for me. Tough as nails to live that continuously and constantly. But that is what has to be done if you and I can go to sleep at night saying, today I did no harm. Because doing no harm has to do with doing no harm in the mind, doing no harm in the emotion, doing no harm in action, just being harmless. You try that for a day and you can tell me how long it took before you forgot what you were doing. I found it, muy difficile, I'm telling you, at times especially. But doesn't mean it can't be done, and it doesn't mean that we're not the ones to do it. If we were not the ones to be able to come into the sense and sensibility, we wouldn't be tuned in, we wouldn't be listening, we wouldn't be part of all of this. We wouldn't. We're responding not because you had nothing to do and you felt like tuning and see what's going on. No, you responded to an impulse of the soul within yourself, that the inner mind of the heart you responded to, because you know you're more than whatever, no matter how good it is or not so good. You know deep down within you, but wait, there's more. And that's what our spiritual gatherings are about, for us all to hear, but wait, there's more, you see. And the more is not going to be anything that'll come out at you or you can perceive. It's going to be what you're going to let loose from within yourself, and it's exciting. And it's extremely difficult in times of our own personal challenges, when we have whatever the challenge is and it's in our faces. That's when we really have to get tough. And let me tell you, pain will take all your attention, as you know. Pain will have your attention, but we have to learn to go beyond it and know that this is a transitory thing. It is transitory. It's not permanent, doesn't matter what it is. It's not permanent. And you and I have to know whatever that is. If it is some kind of a medical diagnosis that knocks the socks off you, you and I have to know that we can look at it the same way that we look at a paper cut, which is very painful and gets your attention, and know the self-healing within me is capable of healing this, just as it heals the paper cut, which is really remarkable and amazing and miraculous, can heal anything. There is no such thing as incurable. None. So I'm going to leave us knowing that we are very much more potent and powerful than we all might imagine, and that good and only good is in store for us, because that's how we're made. And that was the intention of our Creator. And now I'm going to find I know I brought it with me. Yes, I did. My gift. As you find your gift, because this is our moment to celebrate our fullness. This is when we celebrate our plenty. This is when we take our daily bread, whatever size it is, and we bless it, and we share from it. And we're happy to do it, and we do it in joy, knowing that there'll always be daily bread, always. Because Our source is the provider of all of our good. So, my dear ones, let's take our wonderful gift between our hands and let's know and feel this. Divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to bless, to prosper all those who give and all those who receive. I rejoice in the sharing of my good and I release my gift in love. It's a joy to be with you, and I thank you for tuning in, but most especially I thank you for all your love and kindness and your support and the good energy that comes our way and all your gifts, your financial gifts. You are making a huge difference and you're not even probably aware of it all. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember, you're the one. You're one of the thousands that Ernest Holmes talks about. You're the one, and I'm knowing, and all of us here are knowing, and the prayer ministry is knowing that you are moving absolutely more deeply and fully into the true essence of your being, and it is your guiding light, and you are safely kept within our prayerful hearts and minds. And we're knowing only for you, always and ever, the highest, most glorious, unfolding good. Now remember who you are. The point of light, the point of power, the point of energy, through which your source chooses to express itself, if you allow it to, in all of its amazing magnificence, its power and its promise. That's who you are, that's what you are, and that's what I'm going to leave you with in this moment. So until we meet again, and please do join in to everything that's available. It's a beautiful thing to look in each other's faces, to talk to each other. Join us, please, when we're gathering together. And know you're loved and cherished, and as the children say goodbye, we'll say goodbye. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Next time.